Number 7. I'm Ernesto Ungaro. I'm also joined by Alan Kavanaugh with me here in Dublin. So today's topic is about using Jaspersoft iReport with a domain data source. So we're actually going to get started with a poll this morning. So Alan, if you can do the poll.
So we're going to leave this poll up for about a minute until we get all the votes in. And as you have questions on the talk, you can just pop them into the questions box and we'll try and answer as many as we can live. So we just about have everybody voted. We'll just give it another couple of seconds. Okay, so I'm going to close the poll now and I will share the results with everybody. So there you have us. We have 29% of the people on today who have build a report on iReport from the domain and 71% who have said no.
Okay, great. So now we kind of know who's out there and you know who's done this before. So that's great. So we'll go ahead and get started with the presentation. Quick view at the agenda. So we'll have a quick review of Jaspersoft domains. We'll find out when you're using iReport what you can do in a domain query and what you do in the Jasper Reports library. We'll look at domain-driven input controls, sub-reports, sub-datasets, table component, and also domain security. So let's dive into the review of domains. So what is a Jaspersoft domain? It's a virtual view of a data source that presents the data in business terms. It allows for localization and provides data level security. So essentially what happens in a traditional report that you make in iReport is that you write a SQL query exactly with the, you select some rows, you select some columns, you filter, you group them, you sort them, etc. And you get a result set. With a domain, the engine's doing that work for you. You're typing out a domain query, and SQL is being generated for you. So why would you want to use a domain versus using SQL directly in your reports? One of the main reasons, in my opinion, is central security. So if you have row or column level security that you need to publish out to hundreds of reports, then domains are for you because you don't have to worry about tying in security to every single report. You have one data source versus multiple, potentially. The joins are abstracted, so you might just define the joins once and then get to reuse them over and over again. Multilingual text labels, although those don't carry over to iReport, they do happen in ad hoc. Another big advantage is, through domains, maybe most of you are used to using those in your reports that you do for ad hoc. So if you use the same domain for ad hoc in iReport, you pretty much get you get the benefit of that simplification. Push down the queries, and then as of version 5, it's actually something that you basically can't do in iReport, and that's to do cross-domain joins. So as of version 5, you can, in your domains, you can choose multiple data sources. It might be an Oracle database sitting in one data center and a Microsoft SQL database sitting in another data center. You can create a virtual view on top of that called a virtualized domain. So those are also accessible. So that's kind of a strong feature there. So where are Jaspersoft domains defined? They're defined in the web browser. I don't want to go through making these because it is, well, we advertise this as sort of an intermediate to expert tech talk. So if you don't know about Jaspersoft domains, there's actually other tech talks you can watch and documentation you can read to get up to speed. Now remember, we publish these on YouTube every week, so go learn about domains and then come back and rewatch this if you're not up to speed on what they are. Although you might learn something about iReport and Jasper reports in general if you keep watching today. Okay, good. Not the entire audience dropped off there, so that's good. So security is also defined in the web browser, so it's a separate XML security file. We might get to take a look at that if we get time. And where do I learn more? So the ins and outs of Jaspersoft Domains Tech Talk. So these, I actually share this presentation with you guys. So if you we'll paste the URL of the presentation of the slides that I'm using something called rvl.io. So it's a kind of a JavaScript slides that I'm using. So you can just click on those and check out the ins and outs of Jaspersoft Domains Tech Talk. All right, so let's dive into the next subtopic is what can you do in a domain query? So we're going to be bouncing between this and demos. So the first thing is filtering can be done in the query, and it'll affect the where clause of the SQL query. So let's get a demo of that. So I'll go ahead and get right into iReport. And we'll create a new report. So before I do that, let me just show you what I have on my server. I'm going to use just a standard Supermart domain that ships with the product. Just admin. All right, very good. So the domain we're going to work with is under organizations, domains, and it's called Supermart domain. If you've downloaded the sample data, you've got this domain. You can follow along if you'd prefer later in the video. So I've just edited the domain. You have the domain designer, you have the domain security file, etc. So from iReport, if I go to File, New, and I choose Domain Report, I choose either a template or just a blank sheet. The first thing that's going to happen, it's going to ask me to choose a connection. So I'm going to choose the local connection that I have in the repository navigator. So remember, this assumes you know a little bit about iReport already and Jasper Report Server. Once I hit next, what happens is I get a list of the data source or the domains that I have in my server. So I pick the Supermart domain. I hit next and I get this nice UI for filters. So if I want to play with the employees and I want to filter by maybe their, let's say department, then I can do department equals, and I can hit this button here and it'll actually get the list of available items. So let's look at the store permanent checkers. And I create the condition. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. This UI is a bit tricky when you're doing that. Store permanent checkers. And I'll do add update condition. So now when I hit next, I'll just, desktop is fine. All right, so you might notice this is a little bit different maybe than you're used to. You get this domains window, If you don't see the domains window, go to Window and hit Domains, and it'll show up. Note that the other 3 areas are filtered out. That's because the employees in my domain, the employees doesn't join to expenses, inventory, or sales. So you're only going to see, it's only going to be available things that you have available as joins. So in my slide, what we were talking about was filtering. So let me show you what the query looks like for this. Basically I don't have any query fields yet. I get a query filter string where it shows me employee department description equals store permanent checkers. So if I want to grab some fields, let's grab the full name of the person. I'll add the field to the report, the position, the hire date. We're going to kind of reuse this report throughout the report. And then the salary, employee private, salary, and we'll get their gender as well. Cool. So now I've got these fields in my report, but instead of doing a select fields, they get put into the query fields. So that's fairly straightforward. That's how the select works. And then we have the query filter string. Now this is hard-coded to store permanent checkers. We'll take a look later at doing a parameter that the user actually gets to select from. Then I'm going to grab these fields and just drop them into my detail band. Let me just clean up the report. Funny keyboard here, just a sec. This one is title, salary and sex, and what else do I want to do here? Oh yeah, I want to point out a couple things. So hire date, you see it got detected as a timestamp. So I can change the field pattern and date, and we'll just do a short date like this. Nice. Okay, so I saved that, and now there's this button called Publish Report. We'll give it a name. We'll call it Employee Salary. Press Next, and we'll put it into the public, oops, that's not what I wanted to do, public and my folder. Can I create a new folder from here? No. Okay, so the report should be published now. Let's check in the repository. It's in public and my folder, and one of these, yeah, the employee salary report. Something you have to know, you cannot hit the preview button because iReport does not have a connection to domains. Remember, domains are a Jasper server only object. So if I want to view the report in iReport, I have to right-click the report from the server and run it. And remember, this is all happening server side. So now I get my report. I've got an 8-page report. It shows me the names, the hire date, the salary, and their sex. Cool, right? Okay, looks like hire date, they're all hired the same date, so that's a little funny, but so I won't use that field. All right, so let's go back to the slides. Oops, not that. Slides.
So we have a question here, and they're using iReport 4.5, and it doesn't have a report when you click on New Reports. So what version is needed to get domain reports?
Oh, okay. All right. So the question is about the version of iReport. So the domain, so domains in iReport have been around at least since I've worked for Jaspersoft, which is 2 years, so it would have been about version 3.7. Always been there. The difference is maybe you're using iReport Community Edition, so domains are a pro and enterprise only feature. So maybe that's, and feel free to ask another question if that's the case. But if you have iReport 4.5 Pro, it should be there. If you go to Window and you go to Domains, you'll see it. Otherwise, feel free to download a trial of iReport Pro and Server Pro and give that a shot.
We also have another question, and it's the difference between using iReport or Jaspersoft Studio.
Okay. So Jaspersoft Studio, as you know, it's in development still, so it's not released to our customers, it's released to community. So the domain feature, which is a professional feature, is not included in the versions of iReport that you can download, or of Jaspersoft Studio, but it will have full support. I've actually gotten a sneak peek of that, and it's it's nice, works well. Okay, great. Thanks for those questions, guys. Keep them coming. They make the session more interactive and helps me drive the direction of the content today. All right, so let's look at a couple things here before I switch back to the demo. First of all is a query was executed against my domain. And so if I look at my console and I open up Jaspersoft log, we see here, because I've got debugging turned on for queries, that a query was generated to select the fields that I want, do the joins. So remember, at no point did I have to make a join. And then finally we got the where clause, where the department description is permanent checkers. So that's one of the advantages of the domain data source, is that it's going to generate SQL for you. But one of the things I didn't mention was an advantage, which I forgot, is that this, if I were to deploy that domain on, let's say, Oracle versus Microsoft SQL, the engine will take care of the little nuances between those two engines to generate a proper SQL. All right, so let's push forward. Oh, I'll show it later. I wanted to show how to view those the SQL queries, but we'll show that later. Next is sorting. So unfortunately, the domain query language, when you're using it through iReport, is not, I don't know what you'd call it, Turing complete or whatever you'd want to call it, but it can't do everything that SQL can do. So some of those things you actually have to get the entire data set, and then Jasper Reports will do the rest for you. So for things like sorting, you need to do it in Jasper Reports. So let's take a quick look in iReport what modifying our domain to be sorted would look like. I'm going to sort it by sex so that we have all males and all females together. So I will go back to my report, and I'll open up the query dialog, and I'll click Sort Options. And now I can add a field, and that field is going to be, I can't seem to see the full thing, so let's see, is it this one? The labels are kind of, yeah, that's great. So we'll do sort by gender. Now I could add as many fields as I want if I want to sort by multiple ones. In the future, we're going to add things like, order field. It may even exist today. It's just not documented in the API, so I'm not sharing with you. So once I do that and I hit OK, I can go back to my repository navigator, and I'll click Replace with Current Document on my report. Save the file before sending it. And now I'll actually just show you from the server. We'll just execute the report from the server. So we'll go to the public folder, my folder, and we've got this guy, employee salary report. If all went right, then, yep, it's sorted by sex. So I see female here is first, and then later on we'll see males. All right, let's go back to the slides. The next one's grouping. So grouping would be the group by functions of a SQL query. For example, I want to show my employees group by sex. So the hint here, right-click, add report group in Jasper Reports. So let's go back to that. So what I need to do is change the report inspector view. Let's say I want to group by salary, or sorry, by sex. So I'll right-click on the root element and I'll say add report group. This will come up with a little bit of a wizard. The group name, we'll call it gender. And we group by this variable or this field called gender. Keep in mind, I could do a complex expression. So if instead of grouping by gender, I wanted to group by salary, like ranges, then I could say salary is greater than 200,000 or something like that. So you could create your own custom groups, and that's actually quite powerful. So in any sense, whether you're using domains or not, you can come up with a SQL query and then you can group it again, which is nice. Okay, we're going to keep it simple here. So we're going to group by gender. I'll add a group header and footer, that's fine. And so now I'm going to take sex out of my column header and I'm going to add it to my group header. I'll make that, change that to gender in case somebody's offended. And then we'll put, oh yeah, you know what? I don't want to put gender there. Sorry. What I want to put is the actual value itself. So the group header will change depending on what's shown on screen. So go bold. Go ahead and keep making the report a little bit prettier as we go. We'll even add a title. Who knows? And we'll center that guy inside of the frame. All right, cool. So let's deploy this back out to see what it looks like. And we'll go back to Chrome and take a look at this report. So I can just hit enter to refresh. All right, so there is, we see sex is female, and we see all the females there. So I would probably do something like this, just to make it a little bit easier to read. So just concatenate gender. Oops, something went wacky there. All right, hopefully that worked. Save it and redeploy it. Try it again. Something didn't get saved there. Oh, yeah, so my field didn't get saved. Okay, you get the idea. I was trying to say gender F and gender M instead of just F and M, but you guys get it. Let's press on with the slides. So that was grouping. Next is limit. So let's say that I wanted to see the top 10 salaries. Or the top 5 types reports. So typically you'd want to do a sort. So I showed you how to do that. You want to sort it by salary. And then you want to hide the rest of the columns. So you need to use the variable report count. And that's simple. We would do it here in the report. We would come in and we would do a filter expression. So I showed you how to do filtering in the query string. There's also another way to do filters, which is through a filter expression. And so let's come in and we'll grab, well, right, so I'm showing you how to limit by, how to limit the whole report. So it's report count, and we'll say greater than or equal to 5. Okay, so I grab that, I hit OK, I hit OK, I save, and I redeploy. And what should happen now is in my employee salary report, we should only get 5 results. Now it's sorted by gender, so it doesn't really make sense. Okay, something went wild there. Let's see, what was my hint? Oh, I think I did greater than, and I meant to do smaller than. Sorry about that. Yeah, so if I do the report count as greater than or equal to 5, we're pretty much not going to happen for us. So less than or equal to 5. Come back to my report. And there you have it. You have 5 salaries. All right. So let's see. Were there any more questions that have come in since? Okay, great. Next is aggregations. So in your SQL queries, you might type in, you know, a sum, an average, and then you want to group it by something. So we've already done the group by. So now how do I do an aggregate? Let's come back here to iReport. Again, ideally, we're going to add some functionality to the language to say sum or average and things like that, and the query will take care of that. Because in general, I would say it's better to just have the database engine do this type of work. We're having to do this in memory. It's okay for, you know, a few 100,000 records, maybe 1 million, get into millions and billions. You don't want to do that kind of thing in memory. The report will take too long. So, so how do we do, so that was my little disclaimer. So how do we do a aggregation? We need to define a variable. So I want to aggregate the salary. I want to get an average and a sum of the salary by gender. So I open up variables, add 2 variables. So let's focus here on the variable definition on the right-hand side. We'll call this one sum salary. We'll give it a type, so we'll just do a double. Set the calculation here to sum. I want to do a reset type by group. If I don't do a reset type, like I reset by report, then I can do, you know, a sum of all salaries, both for males and females, but I'm actually interested in getting a sum for males and one for females. The reset group is pre-filled to gender because that's my only group I have. Don't want an increment type or all this other stuff. I'm just going to tell it the field. So the field is salary. Grab that guy, drop it in. All right, so I'm actually going to cheat. I'm going to delete that other variable that I did, and I'm just going to copy and paste this one. And we'll call this one average salary. And instead of doing a calculation of sum, we're going to do an average. and now we want to drop those somewhere. So I'm actually going to put them in the gender group footer. So for each repetition of my group gender, I'm going to get these variables spit out. I'm going to steal this field and drop it in here as well. And we grab average salary and drop it in. Line that up. All right, cool. So now we save the report. We deploy the report. We go back and we check what happened. Okay. First of all, I left my my limit by 5 in my report, so I'm going to get rid of that real fast because we want to see all the result sets. So I go to my filter expression, take that guy out, apply, okay, save, deploy. You can tell I've done this a few times. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is I'm refreshing my report over and over again. I'm actually not hitting my database each time I do that. Domains have something called a cache, and that cache is, I think it's cleared out like over time, by default like 20 minutes. But every time I refresh, it's just not costing me a trip to the database. So let's find where the female trip, so that's just a little side note. All right, so the average salary for females was 7,192. If I go to the last page, I see the average salary for male was, whoa, 800. Oh, no, sorry, that was a sum. The average 7,091. Interesting. So on average, females actually get paid more, slightly more in this data set. Cool. So let's see what else we have. We have aggregations. Yep. So I pretty much took you through everything that you can do in a SQL query. We went through all these different functions. Where can I learn more? So the admin guide and the user guide for Jaspersoft contains a reference to the DOM-EL language. The DOM-EL language is what we were seeing in the query dialog box. We're actually going to play with that a little bit more now. And you can also use the ad hoc reports engine to discover what the engine's doing. So remember, I can go to create ad hoc view. And I can choose the same domain. I get the same stuff that I get before, but I get to do it in the web browser. Now there's a time and a place for iReport, and there's a time and a place for ad hoc. So you know, iReport, you saw it's super powerful. You can do whatever you'd like with it, but it requires a technical user, whereas ad hoc is also powerful, but it's not unlimited amount of power. You know, you can, well, everything that I showed you, you can certainly do in this language. The point is, though, is that you can save these views and then reports, and you can see a little bit, you can get hints about how this engine's doing things, and that's sort of how I learned a lot about how domains work and how the domain expression language works. All right, what's next? Domain-driven input controls. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into queries. So we saw the built-in functionality. iReport does these pretty well. So if I come to my query here, there in iReport, in the domain window, I can click Edit Filters. And this filter was sort of hard-coded, equals store permanent checkers. If I click this is for prompt, and I update the condition, and I hit close, do you want to update the query in the current report with the new filters? I press yes, push save, and then I think if I replace, I forget what it'll actually try to be clever about what you're trying to do. So because I updated the conditions there, it's actually going to create an input control for me. So if I click input controls, now I have one called department. So let's see what happens back on the server. Quit out of my ad hoc report. Now it's going to ask me which department I want to choose. So if I want to say headquarters marketing, then I see it's actually not a lot of people working in the marketing department in headquarters. But we see our employee salary report updated. So that's pretty neat, the way that works. Now, let's see where the slides take us next. Yeah, let's take a look under the hood. So what did the engine do when we went through this dialog box of editing filters? It created an input control like I showed, but what's in that input control? It's actually a query. It's a single select query. So we'll go to value invisible columns. You see that we're actually selecting a query. If I go to the query resource, keep in mind there is a query language set to SL, and then it selects a field. All right, and that field is employee description. The data source is, of course, my domain. So it works a lot like a SQL query would. This might look scary to somebody who's never done it before, but just try it out. It's not bad. I'm going to try something. I didn't practice this, but I want to change it to a multi-select query. I want to see multiple departments. Right now, I can only select one department. So I'm going to change it to a multi-select query. Okay. As far as this is concerned, I don't think I need to change anything. Just the multi-select query. So back on the server, if I rerun my report, it's going to ask me for multiple queries. But when I hit save, I expect it's going to give me an error, or it's only going to give me the first one. So if I select General Management, Information Systems, and Marketing, and I hit OK, yeah, I get an error. As I suspected, what happens is I'm passing a collection to a string, and it's just blowing up. So in iReport, I have to make some simple changes. The engine will have defined a parameter for me. It defined that parameter called Employee Department Description 1. It gave it a default value expression. I'm going to clear that out because I don't want to instantiate a new collection. But if you want to give it a default value expression, you do have to do that. I have to change the parameter class to a collection. I don't know what this property is. Interesting. That's something internal, either iReport or the server's using. So I hit save, and I'm now going to redeploy my report. Oh, there's another thing I need to do. So in my query, I have an equals. If I looked at the documentation in it's either the admin guide or the user guide for domain expression language, one of the supported items there is in. So when I change that to in, this changes because it's a little confused about what's going on, but it's now going to be able to pass a collection to the query. Keep one thing in mind here. Typically when you're working with parameters in iReport, you're going to be using the syntax like this, P, $P, and that's the parameter name. In the domain expression language, we don't stick to that. We actually just give the parameter name, okay? So be aware of that. So I hit OK, save. Now it's going to ask me if it's going to, it sees that I messed with something in the input controls. I'm sort of driving manual now. I don't want to have it try to update my report, so I hit no. And now I open up Jaspersoft again. I get to pick from n number of departments. We'll just say all for the fun of it. And there we go. We've got all the departments broken out by gender. So if I look at the generated query, it's nice. It's got a nice in clause with the departments that I chose. All right. Let's go back to the slides. Next topic is sub-reports from domains. Fairly simple. I think the best thing is if you grab the slides from the link that Alan posted and you follow this link. The link tells you exactly what you need to do. The trick is these two parameters called SL schema and SL factory. You might notice those are present in a domain-based report. And I actually have an example and a video of how to do those. I don't want to go through it live. The only tip that I'll give is to use the use iReport to help you build the query and then copy and paste it into your new report. I seem to have lost my spot here. So the next thing I wanted to show was sub-datasets and the table component. This one's also not bad. You can follow this link to a community wiki page about creating a table component from a domain data source. It's got screenshots, it's got how to create the component, and it's got an example JRXML. I don't know what else you want. But let me give you a little hint about how that works. So sub-datasets would be something like that drives a list or really a chart or just something else that you need to execute a separate query for. So if I right-click on the report unit and I say add dataset, we'll call it chart. We'll create a new dataset. Actually, I don't want to go through the wizard. I'm just going to create an empty dataset. The key is being able to write a query and passing over fields. So what I do is I cheat and I use the main report or just a separate throwaway report to figure out which fields I want and what the query looks like. So what I can do is just simply grab the fields, copy them, and in my sub-data set, I can just paste them And then the query, the same thing. I can grab the query, copy it, edit the query, paste it. Remember, I do not want SQL. I want domain. The parameters need to exist. I think there's the parameter called SL schema and SL factory. You can just copy those over. And then there's, what else do I need here? Yeah, that's it. And then when you use a chart, there's some more tips about what you need to do. But in short, that's how you use a sub-data set in a domain. All right, back to the slides. I don't think we have a lot more today. Yeah, the last one's a little bit of a demo about domain security. So row level, so there's two kinds of security you can do in a domain. You have row level security, meaning let's say that I belong to store 17. I log in and I want to see the salaries for my employees. Then automatically I see only store 17's data. There's not a lot to demo there. Really, most of that logic is done by the domain engine. The report design will look exactly the same. The rows will be omitted that the person doesn't have rights to. Column level security means user 1 has access to a particular field. In this case, in my demo, it's a couple fields with the salary. I think salary and gender. So we'll take a look at that demo. Again, we're using the built-in domain called Supermarked. So my demo here, you'll be able to do on your own and see what the domain security is. I want to log in as super user, so I can use the login as function. So I'll go to manage users, and I'm going to log in as this guy, California user, because my domain security file limits him to not be able to see the employee private fields. So I go to the repository and I'm going to find my folder and execute the employee salary report. Let's see what happens here. We pick a department. And see what's happened here. I do not see the salary under this user. I also used that field, that's interesting. I used that field in a group, a field that he doesn't have access to, which is the gender field. So that's curious. It just sort of didn't group them at all, which that makes sense. But just be aware that if you're going to use column level security, there might be some gotchas in your report design. But it did do the right thing, which is it blanked out the salary field. That's nice because you can give this to anybody, and if they have right access, or if they have access through the domain, then they get to see it. They save the report accidentally somewhere where a regular user has access. Suddenly they don't see the salary field. All right, so I think that's pretty much it for today's topic. So we'll take some questions if there are any.
We don't have any more questions, so you must have covered everything. There was one or two people who asked about where to find the recordings, and I'm just going to put in the link into the chat box, and there you'll find the upcoming Tech Talks and also the ones we've covered. And you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at the bottom of that page as well. If you click into Watch Now in previous recordings, you'll get the list of questions that were asked in the previous Tech Talks. We did have a question just come in there, and can this be done in Jaspersoft Studio?
Yeah,
Yeah, you'll need Jasper Soft Studio Professional Edition, which is yet to be publicly released. It's only a sort of private beta at the moment inside Jaspersoft. So it will be supported, just not yet. Okay, well, if that's all the questions, then we'll wrap it up. Surprisingly, a few minutes early. I don't think this has ever happened. Yeah, next. So we have a couple weeks off here, and the next we'll pick up Tech Talks again on February 19th. And or was there one before that? No, we pushed off. So February 19th, single sign-on. That's a U.S. time zone, so it'll be 6 p.m. here, GMT. We'll come back to Dublin with dashboard design, go back to the US for embedding Jaspersoft into portal solutions. So keep tuned. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for listening, and we'll send out the recording soon, or just keep looking at our Tech Talks page. Thanks, everyone.